everyone. Welcome to this week's Fireside Hang. If I haven't met you all yet, my name is Samantha Holstein, and I am a senior DevRel engineer here at the Midnight Foundation. I am super excited to be hosting this special Fireside Hang today, and I'm so glad that you're all able to join us. So, like I said, today we have a very special Fireside Hang. I am joined by Erick Romero from Mesh and Etta Labs and Kevin Millikin from Shielded. So would you all like to introduce yourselves? We can start with Erick and then Kevin after that.
Sure, sure, Samantha. Thank you for inviting me. I share my knowledge with the community. I'm from Etta Labs and Mesh. We're building products and tooling for the Midnight ecosystem.
Lovely.
And I'm Kevin Millikin. I've been working as the language design lead for the smart contract language on the Midnight Network for about a year and a half now.
Lovely. Well, it is so exciting to have you both today. First, Erick is going to be talking about his most recent projects, kind of what he's doing with Etta Labs and Mesh and how he's kind of collaborating with the community. And then after that wonderful demo, Kevin is going to be talking about the compact and Minokawa transition, as well as the new Minokawa release features. So I'm super excited for this. So without further ado, let's jump in. Erick, let's go for it.
Perfect, Samantha. So, well, I have prepared something really nice for you guys. It's a kind of a summary of what we have been building for the ecosystem, what has been our roadmap in the last year, what we want to perform on the next years as well, and some really nice things about the events that it's coming and a game that we prepare. So I'm gonna showcase how it works and also a demo of an application that we are also working as a partner ecosystem. So well, let's get started. As I mentioned, right, I'm working with Etta Labs and Mesh. It's kind of a connection that we combine education, products, and open source. So we have, this is kind of the summary how I'm connecting what we are doing with Etta Labs. So we have the development part, where under the Mesh repository, we actually put all the open source that we are building. So these products are based on the smart contracts, but we know, and everybody asks for that, all these smart contracts, they need to be open source. So we are using Mesh repos to put all these open source smart contracts, so it's transparent and visible for everybody. And we are, for the products that we're building, we're actually building those tools. So those tools benefit Etta Labs as a product, but also other developers that they want to build on top of this tooling. So this is what we are doing with Mesh. And regarding Etta Labs as a company building on top of Midnight, we are focusing on products. And we can divide it in, we have consultancy, audits, web development, venture studio, education. Regarding the venture studio, we are building two products as a Midnight ecosystem, focus on renewable energy and waste management. And we are putting tokenization, identity, DeFi in the same bucket. And I'm gonna demo in a bit how this application looks like. And also we are building a application that it's called One Click Midnight that wants to kind of deliver to business developers. This is the way I call them, like some more tech savvy developers. I call them smart contract developers, blockchain developers, but there's also business developers, kind of those developers already building in Web 2, but they start want to using features of Web 3 blockchain, but they don't want to spend 1, 2, 3 years learning how to write a smart contract. They just want a nice privacy enhanced feature from Midnight. So this One Click Midnight is going to allow that. Web 2 developers use Web 3 as a common API. What else? As part of standardization, our team is also involved in the MIP as a MIP editor, right? So we start, the ecosystem it's starting right now. So being part of these MIP editors, we think we can add a lot of value and learn a lot from the process itself. And also, it's we do a lot of education for Midnight, right? We have participated in hackathons, we run events, we have run workshops. I'm going to show some videos and photos from the last events that we participated, and also some outreach in the ecosystem. So on the right, I made a summary of the main topics of each kind of segment. So in Mesh, we have a tooling, we have docs, we have a starter template, so developers can kind of start a DApp that can be deployed on themselves. For example, like in 3 minutes, it comes with contract, with the UI, with the deployment, and then we have contracts to showcase different ways of writing contracts, and that's where the MIP editor comes into play as well, because there is kind of best practices and procedures to actually write a secure smart contract. Regarding the products, as I mentioned, we have these two products: renewable energy, focus on renewable energy, waste management, and this one-click Midnight. And on the education, we have these Midnight sessions that we are recording every week, that we showcase things about the ecosystem, coding itself, and also questions and answers from the community, and these hackathons and workshops. So now I'm going to show a demo that we are working regarding this renewable energy. So I'm going to play here. It doesn't have audio, but I'm going to explain a little bit some of the mechanics. So you have a KYB, right? We are focusing on businesses. So the business, they do their registration. They follow all the procedure common from the KYC process. We want to implement the identity mechanisms in different ways. So we're participating in a workshop of identity as well. So there's a lot of ways this can be implemented. Right now, we're just showing one easy way to authenticate and create a certificate on Midnight. After that, we're going to have users that they can create certificates based on their energy consumption. And also, we want to have the buyers that create those packets for buying those certificates. So here show the process, for example, of okay, your target volume, energy source, the vintage, retirement. At the end, there are certificates, right? And they do the creation. And then you can see here that there's the list of the different certificates from different players. The nice thing here is that we are mixing public and private in a nice way. These certificates are public before getting into the Web3 ecosystem. So we don't need to make it private, because it's the transparency. It's a nice feature for those certificates themselves. But what we are using Midnight to get an advantage in this market, it's that when buyers, they want those certificates, they don't want to expose that they are actually buying the certificates, and they don't want to say how much they are putting into the market. So we're using Midnight for that. So the buckets are going to be anonymous, transactions are going to be private, but after that, they're going to be able to prove that they hold those certificates for those governmental verifiers. So we have, this is for renewable energy, and then we have also for waste management. So this is how one-click Midnight connects, because at the end you can see that we have modules. We have tokenization, we have DeFi, we have identity, and we have certificates. And we are talking right now about renewable energy, waste management, but this could be replicated in a whole thousand of different kind of use cases. So this one-click Midnight is going to let people to use these modules that are open source to actually build their specific use cases. Okay, so this is the demo. Now, I'm gonna show here like what's been going on with EDA Labs and Mesh in the last year, right? So this is kind of a summary that everything gets started on the left bottom. You can see here a photo with Taina. Taina is also a member from EDA Labs and Mesh. That's where we met Steph. It was in Blockchain Rio. And we had a lot of talk, introduction about Midnight, and that's where kind of I was like, I get to understand the really importance of Midnight, and that's where I decided to introduce to start using Midnight as a piece for Ada Labs products. And then you can see then on the right, we have some workshops regarding Cardano. I transitioned from Cardano to Midnight, but I don't like to say transition because at the end, it's kind of, we are starting to use both blockchains and others to actually solve what the user wants, right? So we have this Cardano workshop regarding the constitution. And then on the right top, that's where the constitution was signed by some members of the community in Argentina. It's a photo of Charles as well. And then we participated in a, I think, not sure if it was the first hackathon in person of Midnight in Argentina. It was last year. And we did a workshop and participated on the hackathon. It was really early days, but it was really nice to see, get together with the community. There was a lot of interest from the community at Midnight, how it works and stuff like that. Then on the top, we can see here a photo in Vietnam. This is we did a workshop about Midnight in the Cardano Tech Summit. All these are pretty much all Cardano developers, and they were introduced to Midnight and they love it. It was a lot of momentum built over there. And on the left, this is not actually me. It's my twin brother. He went to Germany to participate on this Cardano hackathon from Endmaker, where they have a Midnight segment as well. So he went to represent Mesh Midnight over there. So yeah, this been kind of what's going on, right, during the last year. What's going on the next year, right? This year and next year regarding events. And at the same time, I'm gonna show the game that we kind of designed for increased engagement and kind of understanding how Midnight works. Because at the end, during these events, not all these events are developers, like kind of tech-savvy developers. Sometimes there are business developers, right? That there are Web2 developers, or even business guys or members that they haven't even heard about blockchain, but they get interested because of the features it brings, right? So I wanted to kind of create these games to gain swags and also some kind of knowledge during the process. So this is the game. It's easy. It's not that complicated. Nobody's gonna have to write a smart contract or compile anything. It's just kind of putting together how circuits works within Midnight. You have some private information, representation of creation the proof. You have your circuit, a function if you kind of comply with the conditions, and then in the middle the Midnight symbol that represents a counter, right? And depending on your lag on the cards, right here, these are empty spaces, but we are designing a specific cards with specific conditions and specific numbers, and based on what you got from the cards, you're gonna be able to increase the counter by 1, by 2, by 3, and depending your lag, you're gonna earn a specific swag. So we are kind of bootstrapping this mechanism in Cardano Summit Rio, which is our next event that is gonna take place in Rio, and this event is really nice. I was talking with the guys from Midnight. This is the first event that is gonna be kind of decentralized from Cardano. From the last years, all the events were hosted by the Cardano Foundation in one specific year, once a year. In this time, these events are being kind of sponsored by the treasury of Cardano, and the hosts are going to be specific members of each region. In South America, Era Solar, it's responsible of organizing the Cardano Summit events in Brazil and Argentina. And in July, I invite everybody, I take advantage of this meeting. On October 15th, next week, there's going to be the Cardano Summit in Rio de Janeiro. I'm going to have a booth with Ada Labs, Midnight. We're going to do workshops, panels, and there's going to be Midnight swags And for earning those swags, you're going to have to play that game. And depending on your luck, you're going to be able to get t-shirts, bags, and you name it. You're gonna find everything on the booth. Later on, we're going to participate in other two events. The main event of Cardano in Berlin, that we're going to make everybody play that game as well to earn swags. And then later on November, we're going to have the amazing first Midnight Summit event. So it's going to be really nice to meet Kevin, Samantha over there, guys. So yeah, so that's pretty much the summary of what we've been building, Samantha. And once again, really thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, round of applause. That was awesome. Nicely done.
Thank you.
I really, really enjoyed the different use cases you were talking about. Everything from the Web 2 kind of introductory stuff that makes it really easy to, I love this poker game as well. I think that's going to be so helpful in kind of learning more, not only about Midnight, but just kind of how Web3 in general works. And that's going to be so cool. Awesome. I don't see any questions or comments from the community, but if there are any, please feel free to put them in the chat in the meantime. But with that, thank you again, Eric. We are now going to transition a little bit into updates with Midnight and Compact, and of course, all of the amazing tools that we use on a daily basis. So, Kevin, let's get started.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Eric. It's actually really great for us who are building the platform to see developers using it, because we build platforms for adoption, and so you guys are the ones that we're doing it for. I want to talk a little bit about some changes that have come to the language, to the structure of the language, the smart contract language on the Midnight Network, and then some changes that have come to the features of the language. I think that you may have seen an announcement earlier today that we have a new release. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's in that new release, but first I want to talk about some more structural changes. So the very first thing that you need to know is that we've changed the name of the language. Compact is now called Minokawa. Minokawa is a Philippine mythical bird who is able to eat the sun. That's what causes solar eclipses. And there's a connection to midnight, because once he's eaten the sun, there's no more daylight. So then it's midnight. And then the sun does come back, or at least it always has so far. We are moving the project into the Linux Foundation's decentralized trust, known as LFDT. So we propose that we would move the project under their governance and into their GitHub organization. And they've accepted. They're really excited to have us on board. There's a lot of other people that are doing decentralized projects there, and we're excited to partner with them. We're also excited to expand the language a little bit to be more generally a language for zero-knowledge proofs. So right now we've built it to target the Midnight Network, and it is still the smart contract language for the Midnight Network, and will continue to be, but we'd like to broaden the scope a little bit. So anything that fits a similar enough programming model using zero-knowledge proofs would conceivably be able to use a lot of the same contract logic. There is an announcement on the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust blog, and open sourcing will be coming soon. So we will open source the repository that we've been working in for the last 2 years. It will be hosted under the Linux Foundation. You'll see announcements about that. Hopefully it's really soon. I suspect within the month. We just have to sort out crossing T's and dotting I's. There will be all kinds of benefits to the community when we have this open source repository. Number one, you will be able to file bugs and actually know that they're getting to us, the developers. I appreciate that dropping them into Discord doesn't always get a response that's very effective for you. And so being able to do that, and being able to see bugs that other people have encountered is useful too. You can see that you're not the only one that's experiencing an issue. You'll be able to make feature requests to the team. That's a channel to really get features on our radar, to hear an answer of if we're not considering a feature, why. Sometimes there's a technical reason. And you can star requests. I would prefer like you actually star the feature request rather than put a +1 in the comments, because it's a lot easier for us to count the stars, and we can see who's interested in what features. You will be able to attend our weekly team meetings. The team meets weekly for an hour, and we typically talk about sort of technical designy things. Those will be open to the public. So you'll see announcements about that soon. They'll appear on the Linux Foundation's calendar. You dial in. We're switching to a Zoom platform after using Google Meet for a long time, and we just tried that out today. Had some hiccups, but we're learning how to like raise our hands and how to send emojis and things like that on Zoom. So that'll be a possibility. You can contribute. You can send us improvements. There's all kinds of places where it would be possible to contribute. And we will be performing language design in the open, so you'll be able to see the features that are that are being considered, that are being designed, and how that design works. Along with this will come a particular structure for project governance that's really following kind of open source best practices for truly open source projects. This is a big reason why we want to do this move. I've worked on lots of language projects, and they don't succeed if you don't trust us. And so the way that we earn your trust is with openness. And so we will achieve the openness, and then hopefully the trust will come with this sort of governance model, which is kind of best practices from the Linux Foundation. So there will be a technical steering committee, and this will be like 5 people who can vote and make decisions on really core things, like the charter itself, accepting feature proposals when they're in a status where they could finally be accepted, things like that. There will be a larger team of maintainers. This is sometimes known as the core team, where these are the committers to the project. These will be people who have earned the right to submit code to the repository and approve changes. And there will be a really well-defined process for how you become a maintainer. Typically, it involves contributing a certain number, 8 or 10 PRs that meet a quality bar that we would set, that don't require substantial rewriting, that come with like the test coverage that we expect, that tick all the boxes that we expect a quality contribution to have, where we can say, yeah, we can actually trust you to be a maintainer of this project. And then there's a larger group of contributors. And so this is all of you, potentially. Anybody that wants to contribute anything, um, um, obviously talk to us before you send us contributions. We may be able to help you shepherd them into something that actually is going to get in. And then one of the maintainers will commit those for you. And there will be really well-defined processes, clear processes for how to join this group. So how does a contributor become a maintainer? That will be really well-defined. And the first technical steering committee is going to be 5 people who've been working on the project at Shielded Technologies. But we will be serving at most a 1-year term. And one of our first orders of business will be establishing a procedure for electing the next technical steering committee. How do we get nominations? How do you get elected? What are the terms? How do they serve? Things like that. And then I wanted to mention the language design. I talked about open language design. This is something that I am extremely keen on. We will have a language design funnel where language design proposals come in as problem descriptions, requirements, really well-motivated things that you would like to do and that you can't do. Not necessarily fully designed solutions. It's really great to just have the community people say, I want to do this in my contracts and I can't figure out a way to do it. And after some discussion, we'll say, yeah, there is no way to do it. We need some new feature. Let's figure out what that is. Then there's a process of a proposal and a design. We are going to use a version of the Midnight Improvement proposal process. So MIP is what that is called. I think we're going to fork the process, give it a different name to avoid confusion. We'll have a different stream of numbers to avoid confusion. But otherwise, we'll have different editors who approve proposals. But otherwise, we're going to follow the process. We won't try to innovate there. The next step in the language funnel is specification, where it's specified clearly enough that we think we could implement it, and then we approve it and agree that we are going to implement this in the smart contract language. We've got a scheduled meetup in a week, next Wednesday. I will be talking to the Linux Foundation, and I'll be talking at a much more sort of high level, top-down view of what is the Minokawa language. It's compact. It's compact. You've known it as compact all along. It's the same language. We changed the name with the latest release. We kept the version number sequence the same. We've added a bunch of new features, but it's the same thing you've known. We'll talk a little bit about where we think it's situated. We'll talk a little bit about the pieces that it needs to work. The timing is 8 a.m. on the US West Coast, 4 p.m. in the UK. And I didn't list all the other possible time zones that you might be in, but it's an online virtual meetup, and you can see the Linux Foundation's calendar to see how to sign up for that and attend that. And then the next thing I want to talk about is the release that just went out. It was actually, I think it was available yesterday, and I think it was announced this morning in our different channels. So this is compiler version 0.26. The compiler and the dev tools are still called Compact. At some point, we will change that name. We haven't done it yet. The language is now Minokawa, but we haven't changed things like the standard library. So you'll still say import Compact standard library in your contracts. And that will change. That will all change. You'll know when it does. But right now, the implementation itself is still using the old name. We didn't change that. We did add lots and lots of great new features. So how to get it? You get it the usual way. You install the Compact dev tools. There is a blog post on the docs blog that has the curl command that you need to install the dev tools, and then you just say Compact update, and you should be on 0.26. That's the latest version. I'm going to run through a whole bunch of new features pretty quickly. The emphasis of this release is, I call it the array-likes edition. So we have 3 different things in Compact that are kind of array-like. One of them is byte arrays, we call bytes. One of them is vectors, which are fixed size arrays of any kind of compact element type. And the other one is tuples. So vectors are actually a special case of tuples in our typing system, but you can think of them differently if you wish. They under the hood, they really are the same. And so we have tuples, vectors, and bytes, and we've made a ton of improvements in how those are handled in the language. If you've used the language for serious work, you know that it was not very practical to use those, and you'll find out that it is now, hopefully, and there's more coming, by the way. So the very first thing is that you have some special syntax for bytes construction that you didn't have before. The way you constructed bytes before is that string literals were bytes, and they represent a string literal represented the UTF-8 encoding of the string. So if you wrote hello bang exclamation point, that was a 6 element bytes with those UTF-8 encodings. It's not the most convenient way to construct byte arrays if you really want to work with byte arrays. So we've actually given you syntax to construct bytes. You use the square brackets like you construct vectors and tuples. You put the keyword bytes in front. This is a non-breaking change because bytes was already a reserved word in the language, and there's no ambiguity. So now I can construct that same array of 6 bytes by putting in the UTF-8 encodings of those characters as numbers. If you're working with crypto, this is a lot easier than constructing your byte arrays using strings. Along with that, so here's an example of so green is the new thing, red is the old thing. We haven't taken away the ability to write string literals. You can still write string literals. Here's just an example showing how awkward it was. If you wanted a byte array that actually had some real numbers in it, it was a little bit awkward to write it as a string literal. And I would not say that this is like clear or easily maintained code. The next thing we've done is we've added the ability to index into bytes. So you can index into vectors and tuples, but you could not index into bytes before. Now you can. So if I've got this array of 6 bytes, then I can just index into it using numeric indexes. Before, the only way you could do that was you could cast the bytes into a vector type, and then you could index into the vector. And this was a really, really expensive operation. The difference between bytes and vectors in Minokawa is that bytes have a packed representation where they're packed as densely as possible into the underlying crypto field elements. And vectors have an unpacked representation where it's a single field element represents each element. So vectors are really cheap to access, and bytes are expensive. It requires unpacking. And so casting a bytes to a vector is a very expensive operation because it unpacks the entire thing. If you only want to index one element, that's really too expensive. So we've given you direct indexing. You can iterate over bytes. We have 3 ways to iterate over vectors and tuples. You can use for loops, you can use a map operator, and you can use a fold operator. And all of these work with bytes now. The element type of bytes is uint8, as you'd expect. The typing rules are interesting, and you'll discover those when you try to use it. When you map over a bytes, for instance, the result will be a vector. And there's a couple reasons for this. One is that you can actually map over multiple arguments, and one of them could be bytes and one of them could be a vector. And so we have to make a choice of which one is going to be the result. The other thing, though, is that we don't want to make this cast from vector to bytes, which is potentially expensive. We don't want to make that implicit because then you're paying that cost whether you want to or not. We're going to make that explicit. So you would have to explicitly cast this back to a bytes, for instance. Along with this, it's really convenient if you can write hexadecimal literals when you want to construct some bytes. And so we've given you the ability. There's no innovation here. This is just exactly the same syntax that TypeScript uses. And octal is available if you want it. And binary can be convenient, so binary is available. Okay, I know we've made some general improvements to all array likes. So that's bytes and tuples and arrays or vectors. So our spread syntax works now for array likes. So we introduced this spread syntax that worked for structs. You could construct a struct by adding the fields of another struct inside of it. You can actually add the elements of an array like inside of an array like. So this is either a vector or a tuple, depending on the type. It's concatenating v0 and v1 by spreading them inside of a construction expression. And you can put this anywhere. It works the way you'd expect. The typing rules are expectable. This will work. One caveat is it doesn't work in pattern matching. It doesn't work in pattern matching for structs either. So that's something that's potentially coming, but not there now. The sort of the dual or the flip side of spreading to construct bigger structures out of existing ones is to slice to extract smaller subparts. So we went back and forth on a lot of syntactic ideas for how to do this. TypeScript doesn't have syntax support for this. And so we came up with something that we hope is that you find usable and pleasant. There's no keyword slice. You write slice. The size goes in angle brackets because it really is a size parameter, like a generic, like in types. It's telling the type of the result. So how big that's how many elements to slice. The result will be a array like with that many elements, whatever size is. You tell it the value to slice to extract the subpart of, and you tell it to start index. So if I write this expression, it's going to slice the starting from the start index size elements. So for instance, you can slice out the first 4 elements of a vector of 8 by starting at 0 and slicing 4. You can slice out the last 4 by starting at 4, slicing 4, and you would get indexes 4, 5, 6, and 7. With zero-based indexing, that's the last 4 elements. So you can put this together. Here is a little, here's a simple little circuit, and it swaps it takes a byte array with 8 bytes in it, and it swaps the high 8 bytes and the low 8 bytes, slices out the low 8 bytes, puts them first, and slices out the high 8 bytes and puts them last. And then that expression, due to the typing rules, does create a vector of uint8 so that you don't implicitly get a conversion back to bytes that might be potentially expensive. So you can cast it explicitly back to bytes if that's what you want. We have generic circuits that are generic over either types or size parameters, and size parameters are numbers. We have given you the ability to use size parameters as expressions. So before they could appear in types, they couldn't appear in expressions, but really they're known at compile time. We could use them in expressions as numbers. So you can add a size parameter, for instance. You will be tempted to do arithmetic on size parameters in types, and you can't yet do that, but at some point you might be able to do that. You need that to type certain things that you would just like to write. And that one is not super useful if we don't give you this as well. So you can now use non-literal numbers as indexes on array likes, tuples, vectors, and bytes. So before you had to have a literal number there. You could put the number 8, but you couldn't put an expression like 2 times I where I was equal to 4. Now you can put non-literal expressions there. There is a caveat that the compiler does have to determine a constant value for that expression at compile time. So some things that you want to write are not yet possible. Limitations like this in the Minokawa language are generally caused by the ZK backend. So we have to be able to compile the contract code to a so-called ZK circuit, and that is a very restricted world of computation. So we're always looking at trying to push the boundaries of what we can encode into that world, but it's a tricky act for us to pull off. And a lot of the things that you could reasonably encode there are actually quite expensive, and so we don't want to put things in the language that look like they're useful and cheap, and that turn out to be really, really expensive in practice. So we have to be a little careful here. And then the very last thing I just want to mention, it takes up a ton of space in the release notes, so you should see the release notes for details, is we've added a lot more typecasts. There are typecasts in Minokawa that convert between different types, and we had a small number of those. And it led to some weird sort of wordiness in the language. So we've extended the number of the different kinds of typecasts that are available. One of the principles we've adopted is that if you can cast from a type S to a type T, then you could cast back from T to S if it made sense. So we've added a lot of those just to make it make sense that you can go round trip in both directions. We have eliminated intermediate casts in a lot of cases. So previously we have a field type, and you could cast almost everything to a field provided it fit, and you can cast field to almost anything. So you could really, in practice, get a cast between any pair of types by casting through an intermediate field type, and it was just awkward to do that. So where it made sense, we've provided those with the semantics of using the intermediate cast. You just don't have to write it anymore. And you should see the release notes for details on that. So that's really a whirlwind tour of everything that is new in the language, both in governance and in terms of features itself.
All right, a round of applause for you too. That was also incredible. And I feel like that was so helpful. Being able not only to talk about the governance with, all of the changes, even if it's really not that much of a change for us, is really, really helpful to make sure that we're all on the same page, as well as going through all of the details for the updates for Minokawa. I feel like I am so excited for the generic size parameters as well as the non-literal indexes. That's going to be amazing. But yeah, it seems like in the comments, perfect timing. I needed this update as well as amazing stuff. I feel like this is going to be a great update for us, and I'm super excited to watch your online workshop as well. That's going to be really cool. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So I think that was all we really wanted to go over with you all today. If you're interested in taking a look into anything that Erick or Kevin talked about today, we can put those links in the chat for you all. But Erick, I know, has a bunch of repos getting started and things like that he's been working on that you're able to see, as well as links to that Minokawa article, as well as the release notes. We'll put that in the chat for you. And of course, we are still super excited about everything going on with this community. If you haven't, make sure you please join our Discord, check out our X. We have hackathons running all the time. And of course, our forum for technical questions and our newsletter as well. As a reminder, our application to attend the Midnight Summit in November is still open. And the deadline for that is October 24th. So if you haven't signed up and you still are thinking that you are interested in going and applying for that, you have until October 24th. You have a couple more weeks before that fully closes. And of course, we host these fireside hangs every Wednesday. The time might change, but it seems like we have been settling on this time. And of course, we are located all over the world. So keep an eye out for next week's. And thank you so much, Erick and Kevin, again for joining us today. That was so much fun. And yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, we're so excited to have you anytime. And same with you, Erick. And yeah, well, we'll see you next week.